So let's learn from the masters. This is really critical. And a lot of my clients say, oh yes, we know how Apple works, or we know how Alibaba works, but I find that actually the knowledge is quite superficial. So I'm going to help you a little bit here by looking at the prime master, which is Amazon. And why it's particularly relevant is that Amazon started off as a business that leveraged physical assets. It bought and sold physical goods. But it has become successful because it has added a digital platform business model to its traditional linear business model. And that's why it offers a very good case study for any other business trying to incorporate platform business models into their own activity. And let's go back in time to 2000. And the story is that Amazon wasn't growing as fast as it was hoping to. It was taking on a lot of inventory, trying to sell it to customers, very costly, and its growth rate had stalled. And it was the question the leaders of Amazon asked themselves is, fundamentally, we say we want to be the most customer-centric organization on earth. That's our why, our purpose. How do we do this? Because it's a bit difficult, hard work at the moment. What they wrote down, again, it happened to be on a napkin in a restaurant, allegedly, with Jeff Bezos and his colleagues. They said, well, what drives customer experience is choice and selection. If we can give people access to any product that they want, or as many products as they want, they tend to be happier and they come back for more. And they thought, well, who else is interested in this traffic? And this is where they hit on the idea of creating an open marketplace, a third-party marketplace to other companies, other vendors who might want to sell their products to Amazon's customers, potentially also competing products. There's quite a bit of argument internally about whether we want to allow third parties to sell to our customers and compete with our own partners. But what they found is that by opening up to third parties, they increased the amount of choice and selection that customers had. They were happier, more traffic, more customers. It's the same sort of flywheel as we saw with Uber earlier on. They called it their growth flywheel. The beauty of this, of course, is that other people were paying for their infrastructure. They charged third-party merchants for using their own systems. So what happened then is their cost structure went down relative to before. That allowed them to offer lower prices, which drives greater customer experience. They created a flywheel that everybody in their ecosystem benefited from. So that was fine. But Amazon, as you know, has diversified into so many types of businesses. But the critical thing is they have kept this core concept of the flywheel and the platform in all the activities they've done. And crucially, and this is a thing I really want you to try and bear in mind, they've created synergies between all these activities. So one of the most successful businesses they've launched, or activity or business unit they've launched, is Amazon Web Services. It's now one of the biggest cloud computing services in the world. It generates a lot of profit for Amazon. Again, essentially what they did is they took their investment in their own technical infrastructure and they made it available to a different audience, no longer just merchants, but they said to any IT developer who wants to use cloud services, we'll sell our capability to you. Now, they could, and they did in the beginning, sell it as a linear service. Customers could buy the cloud computing service from them, and they would deliver that service to them. But they decided to apply the same thinking here, the platform thinking, to create a new flywheel of growth. So they took on board Steve Jobs' notion of skate to where the puck is going to be, not where it is now, as we talked about earlier on. And they thought, well, who will be using computing power in the future? Well, if you remember, I talked about the fourth industrial revolution and the Internet of Things and every object being connected. And they said, well, why don't we create some unique tools for IoT, Internet of Things developers? Because what that will do, that will attract many more third-party IoT devices to be developed using our cloud computing infrastructure. That will mean there's much more consumption of our infrastructure because every object is going to be connected to the internet in the future. That gives us more scale and it allows us to lower our prices, which will make us more attractive to IoT developers, create a new flywheel of growth around this core infrastructure. But that would be a let's see how these two things connect. And this is the really clever thing about Amazon, because it looks at what consumers want and how developers might connect with that. So it develops its own physical devices. So the Echo device, which you can talk to and it will help you buy things through it or access other services. It has its own stick you put in your computer or your TV. You talk to it and it will deliver entertainment programs. And the little dash devices that you put on the side of the fridge and you can press them when you want to replenish a product. So it creates its own devices and it tends to sell them either at cost or well below cost, because what it's trying to do is add value to the consumer and then connect with its infrastructure business such that developers can develop applications that take advantage of these devices. It's creating another, I think, even bigger flywheel around itself. And this combination of activity has allowed Amazon to grow, this is market capitalization, from about 5 billion to over 300, 400 billion today. But what I want to show you here is the mix of activities, or the mix or the portfolio of business models that it operates and where it invests its capital. So the grey here is in physical goods. It's still a very, very big provider and distributor of physical goods. But you can see the increased investment in technology and software and in platform-based business models and ecosystem development. And I would say that their proportion is about like this today in terms of where the company allocates not only capital and resources, but management attention and strategy. And that's why Amazon has grown to be so powerful today. Flywheels, synergy, and vision.